Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of Monday Night Magic with your favorite epigenetic geeks. Myself, Lori Falk, and my beloved friend, Ken Close. We are thrilled to be here with you this evening. And wow, like I was saying before we officially got started, this loneliness situation that we're dealing with in the world today it's epidemic. The Office of the Surgeon General in May released a study entitled Our Epidemic of Loneliness and Isolation. And the craziest part about this is, I mean, we could build a case very, very, very easily for the fact that COVID and the pandemic and all the lockdowns might have created this loneliness for us. But the truth of the matter is that before the pandemic, nearly 50% of US adults reported experiencing measurable levels of loneliness. Mm-hmm. Measurable. That's pre-pandemic. And I'm just gonna throw a little graph up on the screen here. And I want you to look at these numbers. Just take a tiny peek at them and understand that the drops happened way, way before we went into that pandemic. The one on the bottom here, where we talk about social engagement with friends, that decrease started happening, oh gosh, nearly 10 years before that pandemic hit. A decrease of 20 hours per month between 2003 and 2020. 20 hours per month. And social isolation increased by 24 hours per month. Now, if these figures said, that went right into the pandemic, we could really understand it. So what we're going to do here this evening is look at what's causing this. Because yes, the pandemic had a hand in it, okay? Because I think for 2-3 years of isolation imposed by the government, we lost some socialization skills. But there's so much more that has created this scenario that we find ourselves in today. And that's what we're going to do, is we're going to take a little peek at all of those things tonight. What do you think, Ken?
I love it. And you kind of hit the head, I hit the nail on the head with the first portion of this is our social skills, because way back, then there's been some social media, there's some platforms in which people engage, Facebook, and anybody remember MySpace and that kind of stuff, right? Well, that was happening. This was a way in which we could actually remove ourselves from the belly-to-belly interaction and still connect with our people anywhere we wanted. And also the internet, of course, closed the gap globally between people. We can have what we're doing right now, right? We have Zoom calls, video calls, that kind of thing with anybody anywhere in the world. And that was beneficial for connecting in a digital way. But it really had a kind of a side effect in which it started to disconnect in a personable or physical way. Pretty soon people thought, well, it's just easier. I just call somebody on a video chat, or it's just easier to just text somebody as opposed to actually even looking at them, right? It's like all of a sudden we started to down-regulate our social skills, right? Unbeknownst, we're just trying to make it easy, make it quick and easy, convenient, that kind of thing. And we could have multiple conversations at once. How many people have ever texted 4 or 5 people at the same time, right? Even 2 at the same time. Okay. So all of a sudden I'm really efficient in networking, but I'm starting to down-regulate my social skills. And as we're multitasking, how many of you guys, ever heard that word before? I'm going to tell you a little secret. From the neuroscience perspective, you're not good at multitasking. I'm just going to say. I mean, yeah, we can do this, that, and the other at the same time, but the amount of energy that is needed for each task is fractured by the number of tasks you're doing. Plain and simple. Plain and simple. I'm not saying that people are good at it or bad at it, but the amount of resources we have in this gray matter We all have the same similar amount of neurons, but it's fractured by the number of tasks that we're trying to do at once. So if you're having multiple conversations via text, you're fracturing that capacity. And what you and I are interacting with right now has a certain bandwidth within our brain. That's 2,000 bits of information per second. Okay. Now, our reticular activating system, you might have heard me talk about this before, processes over 400 billion bits of information per second, but our awareness is only capable of 2,000. Now, one conversation with a person consumes almost 1,300 of those bits. So think about it. Can you have a conversation with two people at once? Try it. Try it sometime. Have two people in front of you and speak to them both at the same time. Because to have an efficient conversation requires about 1,300 bits of information. Our entire awareness, everything you right now that you see, smell, taste, feel, aware of, think, and all that content is 2,000 bits. One conversation consumes over half of that. So when people are saying I'm good at multitasking and I can talk with more than one person, no, there is going to be sacrifice. And so as we start to open up the avenue of texting or digital communications, social media, that kind of thing, we're doing that, aren't we? All right, you're doing that and maybe your day job and maybe having dinner and maybe driving up. Shame on you. And maybe this, that, and the other thing. You're doing all these things, AKA multitasking, meaning that even the one you're communicating with on the other end, right, is dysregulated in their nervous system. Because the moment you get stressed and overtasked, the body goes into a bit of fight or flight. It doesn't matter to what degree, to what percentage, you're still in it. And when we're in that fight or flight, we're not in the rest and digest, or in other words, we're not in the healing process. So we start to downregulate these bodies by this upregulation of stress or multitasking. And now we're in a dysregulated body in the nervous system, and we're communicating with other dysregulated bodies. So what kind of quality of connection and communication is that? What's the quality there in terms of relationships that we're building under those circumstances? And that's kind of what we're talking about here, because we've built a blueprint that is destined to fail when it comes to building intimacy or relationships or the depth of love, that we want in a relationship. And so these social skills, I want to really talk about some of these things. We're going to flesh out some of this stuff. And when it comes to social skills, what are we bringing to the table? A dysregulated nervous system? I mean, woohoo, thanks. I love that. What else are we bringing to the table? We're bringing some of our own baggage, some of the things from our past, right? We're bringing things from our childhood. We're bringing some stuff to these interactions. And so we start to build some connections that are already having some flaws. That's not unusual, but where it becomes tasking really even more so is when we're trying to build a relationship of substantial meaning. So in other words, I want a best friend. I don't want a best friend, or I want a partner. And so we're bringing this dysregulated nervous system and this dysfunctional childhood emotional conditioning to the table, and we're trying to build something. That's not horrible, and that's not what's actually causing the dysfunction. Because when we're trying to build a best friend or a relationship, is this with a man or is this with a woman? Are we wanting a partnership romantically? Are we wanting a partnership just in terms of friends? And so is that with a woman or is that with a man? It's really important. And Laura, you can come in on this too, because it's really important to know the other, right? In other words, I'm a man and I want to have a best friend or relationship, a friendship relationship with a woman, I need to know the feminine, don't I? I should know their operating systems. I should know certain things that they are afraid of. I should know tendencies within that feminine energy. I should do my homework, right? Because how many of you guys have had a loved one with a disorder or a disease, or even a child or a sibling that has had a cold, and you're like Dr. Googling everything to find out, how can I support this person, right? I want to give them the best treatment. So I'm looking up all this information that I can get my hands on and giving them the most homeopathic and natural remedies and all that kind of stuff. But how many times do we research the other, right? The one we want a relationship with. Are we researching the masculine? Are we researching the feminine? If we want to have a relationship with that masculine, I think it's very wise, ladies or gentlemen, that you know what has the masculine been going through lately, or even for decades. Some of the things and conditions that stem back all the way to the world wars, you know, such as how many of you guys know men's number one rule? A man's number one rule. A man's rule is, if you're struggling, don't talk about it. Did you know that? Right? Ever watch Fight Club? Watch the movie Fight Club. It's about exactly that, right? Their rule is, don't talk about it. We're going to fight and we're going to beat each other up, but we're not going to talk about it. We're going to have pain and suffering, but we're not going to talk about it, right? So do you know that about the masculine? If you're trying to build a relationship with a man, how do you build a relationship with vulnerability, communications, intimacy, and depth with a modality that doesn't want to talk about it? All right, Lori, what do you think?
Jeez, you made that seem impossible. I mean, you know, we have to look, so many things have changed in the last number of decades. I mean, think back to the 1950s. Think Leave It to Beaver. Oh my God, that makes me sound old, doesn't it? But you know, that was a lifestyle. That was a societal norm. The man went to work and the woman stayed home in a pretty little house dress and took care of the home and the kids and all of that. So women back then were dependent on men specifically for financial reasons. Honestly, more than anything, they were being taken care of financially. Of course, there would be the romantic part and the emotional part and all of that. And I'm not taking anything away from building a family. But the number one thing back then was they needed to be taken care of financially. Well, that is not the case today, right? So we have an entire, like multiple generations of masculine people out there who remember that was what it was like. And they're remembering what their mothers were like, and their perception of the feminine is that. And yet we have moved into an era of very successful professional women who don't need that from a guy. They need emotional support. They need partnership. They need companionship, but they're really not out there looking for the same thing. So there's a lot of disconnect just in our societal norms. As I mentioned to Ken earlier, I think many of the women that are our age would do better with a younger guy because he was probably raised by a more powerful woman and he's not afraid of that. Not to take anything away from the men that are our age, because there's, look at Ken, look at how much he's changed. And he's like this fighter pilot guy who's, you know, into, what was
well, so it's, again, you know, my demeanor, I'm a performance nut. And it comes, I'm martial arts instructor,
right.
You know, all of the components of the masculine in terms of a fighter, of a protector, of a capable, strong body, you know, and all of that thing. And so you would think that, okay, where would you find your surrender? Where do you find your feminine? Where do you find that connection? Right. That's what we were talking about earlier.
Right. And you've done it. you have done a lot of personal growth work and you know how to get vulnerable.
Yep.
I know that so well about you. And there are a handful of other men out there like that. But for the most part, it's something that I think men need to be encouraged to fall into their hearts. They need to come to my programs where I get you out of your heads and into your hearts. I mean, it's absolutely essential because it's from that feeling place that the true connections can really, really, really happen.
This comes into knowing who we want, right? Knowing our other is where this is kind of coming in, because if we don't know our other, if we're a woman seeking a relationship with a man, and we don't know the aspects of men or the masculine, what has been the evolution of late, or the opposite. If we are a man seeking a relationship or intimacy with a woman, we need to know very clearly that what is driving the feminine. And as Lori said, today's women are amazing. I mean, women have been amazing, in my opinion, forever. Humans in general are amazing, but look at the success. Women today have what I would call muchness, right? And there is this concept of women having too muchness, right? So too muchness meaning that they're just too much for any man, right? There's no guy that can handle me because I'm just, whoop, man, I got my stuff together. And yet what happens? They're lonely, right? Seeking that depth. And so it's important that they know each other. A successful woman can be intimidating, but why? Why would a successful woman be intimidating to the masculine? There's been a de-evolution of this masculine energy, and it's being called the toxic masculine, right? It's been given a label. So anytime that we give something a label, we start stereotyping, don't we? So just like, have you ever heard of a war on drugs, right? So when we start warring on something or disliking on something, then we start bringing that energy to it. So same thing with, just think of the words, the toxic masculine. There is a perception, and ladies, you may know what I'm talking about, that there is a fear. And as a man, I've asked and talked to many women about this, about a fear that does not exist in me. And this is a fear that in a lot of women have, it's built since childhood, where it's like, don't talk to strangers, right? Or things about the masculine that are not safe. And there may be even trauma to support that. And that builds another model, so that most of the trauma, the abuse, has come from the masculine. And so the feminine has got this built-in guard. This guard is up. And I never thought of this before until, I don't know, it's been nearly a decade or so ago, having a conversation about just walking out to your car in the dark, right? In maybe an unknown city, walking the streets at night. Think about how safe you feel. And the feminine not feeling safe. I never thought about that, because my history has been about teaching fighters and being a very capable martial artist. I really had not feared any environment. And so to think about that as a driver that would hold me back from going out by myself just to my car after work and looking for a partner to walk with, the buddy system. I never really thought about that. And yet it's an imprint in the genetic codes and the structures within the feminine. And so as a man, we need to know that that's built in, that there is a fear, there is a peace within that energy field that doesn't feel safe. And so how do we combat that as the masculine? We build a safe umbrella. And you may have heard me say that. I put out an energy,
Heart energy. Beautiful heart energy.
Yeah, I purposely build an energy of security. Wow. To umbrella that feminine space, because I know over the conversations, and I can feel it. Ooh. I can feel that that unsafe feeling, right? I have I have little sisters, I have daughters, my mother, all the people in my life that have had a feeling of unsafe because of the masculine. And so, there was a group of us men at a Dr. Joe event, as a matter of fact, that made an agreement to, on a daily basis, to find a moment to just hold this feeling of safety and security over the feminine, just because we all know what it feels like to feel safe, right? I mean, no matter who you are, there's been a moment probably in your life where you've felt safe. And so you can take that energy, that reflection of that experience, bring it to the present moment, and through quantum entanglement, press it against or put it around and on top of some entity. And I would call that the feminine energy. And so we do this on a regular basis, so that if any of you within that field feel threatened anywhere in life, reflect on that for a moment. Go back on that and say, there is an energy field out there in the quantum that all you have to do is believe in it, desire it, and it will shield you, and you will find this upregulation of your bodies. So it's such a big deal to me that I can feel the emotion of insecurity on top of security. So they go hand in hand. And one of the who knows the opposite of love? Have ever heard about the frequency opposites of love? Right? It's not hate. No, it's fear. It's fear. So when we are in fear of our safety, it's really hard to love. So building a relationship, it's really hard to love when there's some kind of security thing. So I just want to offer that understanding that if you tap in, believe me, there's men out there in the world, or even women, that are promoting the feeling and the energy of safety and security for you every day.
Every day.
Every day. Every day. So
every day. And that's why I didn't just jump in when you were getting emotional. I wanted to honor that. I wanted to honor you. I wanted to honor the fact that it is okay for really masculine men to get in their hearts and feel at a deep, deep level. And thank you for actually being an example of what that looks like, and not being afraid of it. I so honor you for that.
This is where our growth happens. Vulnerability, ladies and gentlemen, does not mean weakness. It never means weakness. It means willingness. And to be vulnerable is where our heart is able to expand and grow, because I guarantee you, no growth ever happens from the shutdown emotional state. It won't happen, because it's what we're doing day by day, every day, this repetitive action, this repetitive emotional response that keeps us stuck in a rut, keeps us completely held hostage by the past. So if we want to move forward, there must be a surrender, there must be a vulnerability moment. And this is where one of our topics here, again, knowing the masculine, knowing the feminine, knowing who we want the relationships with. But there's many folks that are out there using dating sites to connect with people, right? We have this media that we can actually create a platform, a page, and then find compatibility with that. And Lori and I were talking about this a little bit earlier today. And it takes some vulnerability, right, to put yourself out there like that, and not everybody's willing to do that, and that's okay. There's no judgment whether you use it or you don't use it. But I want you to be aware of something, because it does take risk to put yourself out there and to be open to connection. It also, I want you to understand that we are now in an age of technology in which AI is starting to build models around all kinds of things, including dating sites. So one of the aspects of some of these dating sites is that a profile can be built by an AI, someone who is using an AI system, an algorithm, and can then find partners out there. Let's just say, let's find Lori. She's an amazing person out there, and she's, I'm going to connect with her, but I am an AI. I am an AI. And so what I'm going to do with this AI technology is I'm going to look for all of the aspects of Lori that that will allow me to really connect to her deeper. And then I will start building conversations, interactions. I can produce pictures. I can produce content. I can produce, because I'm an AI, I have all the resources that I can scan the network, and I can build a model. And Lori won't know the difference because she's connecting with somebody who gets her. Oh my God, gets me amazing. And I have conversations that are so in depth. But this is all, again, through a technology where we're still, maybe there's some internal benefits there. But when we're not belly to belly, when we're not person to person, when we're not having a full-on interaction with another human being, we can't really feel them. We're making up all the content based on an AI. All the content, we're making it up inside based on past references. So just understand that this AI system is going to have an effect on dating sites, and it's already happening, right?
That's frightening. I'm sorry. That's just frightening. Since we've talked about this afternoon, I've decided that I'm going to go into my profile and I'm going to put some stuff about being an epigenetic geek, because I swear to God, if I talk about epigenetic emotional DNA and somebody comes back and can have a conversation with me about that, I will know they're AI.
Right? Because it's like rare that you can have anybody that can meet you on that plane.
Exactly.
This is the thing we have to understand, because now maybe somebody will create a dating site in which, and this is what came to me when I started to understand. I'm an engineer, so I understand how principles are built around creating this kind of stuff. And AI is a big interest in me because I want to see where it can be used on both sides of the fence. And I look more like how it can be used as an asset. If it were in let's say a dating site, and we were to take two people, Lori and I, we've met each other, and now we want to figure out how we can build a model of higher relationship presence. And we engage in an AI site that can actually use that information between the two of us to build an algorithm of communication. Now we can start to heal and build conversations with each other. Now the algorithm only simply knows me, knows her, and builds compatibility engines. And so then her and I can use those structures to actually have conversations, real ones, on the phone or in person at a coffee shop, right? We can actually go somewhere and have these real conversations based on some of the hurdles that the software already got us beyond. Because how many times have you ever gone into a conversation or gone into a meeting and you felt a bit clumsy, right? I mean, no, probably none of you guys, but sometimes you might feel a little clumsy when you first met somebody. And if you already had some content, now there's nothing wrong with being clumsy. I like being clumsy. I don't mind it, because you're going to see me in the real and raw. And when I'm clumsy and like I'm emotional and I'm showing my vulnerability, that's fun. But if we ever hit a hurdle that we have to overcome, then this might be a great way that AI can actually help us to bridge it. Because the side effect of a hurdle And let me go into what a hurdle means. A trigger. Have any of you ever been triggered by a relationship partner? Yeah. Well, that's the best, because being triggered by a relationship partner, someone you care about, means that they're getting deeper into you. So we have a lot of stuff, folks. I have a lot of stuff, and I don't know anybody who hasn't gone through childhood that doesn't have some kind of stuff, right? Some junk in the trunk that they don't want, and some skeletons that they may want to keep hidden. But we're not going to heal by keeping those things hidden. Building great relationships means that we recognize these triggers that the other person is turning on for us inside, and knowing that they are ours. They're ours only. They're only ours. The external experience, whatever words were said, whatever lighting was given, whatever experience happened to trigger us, that's still us being triggered. Our old emotional responses are coming to the surface. This is important because we need that to happen. Now, too often, when somebody is triggered by another one within a relationship, maybe it's early in the relationship, you run, you walk away. You say, nope, that person's not for me. They're triggering me. That's exactly the opposite. Exactly the opposite, because in order for us to heal something, we need a trigger. We need someone to pull that up, because otherwise all we're doing is just skimming the junk off the top of the pond. We never get deep. And those constant deep things are what's holding us back from the intimacy and the partnership that we actually seek, stimulating loneliness, provoking isolation, right? So think about that. What's required to actually get to that deeper emotional junk? Vulnerability and the willingness to step in to a trigger as opposed to run from it, right? What do you think, Lori?
100%, 100%. And, we were talking about that little exercise I like to have people do, because we're all coming to these relationships, whether it's a romantic relationship or a social relationship, and we are looking at and judging the other person through our own lens, through our life experiences. Well, based on our life experiences, we judge what just happened, as X, Y, or Z. But the truth of the matter is, that person had an entirely different set of life circumstances. So as a coach, one of the things that I ask my clients who are in a relationship to do is an exercise called When I Try on Being You. When I try on being you, I'm sad because. When I try on being you, I'm mad because. When I try on being you, I'm glad because. And when I try on being you, I'm scared because. If you could take that simple exercise and do it for the prominent relationships in your life, your ability to be compassionate and have empathy would grow tenfold. And it doesn't mean that there's not going to be ups and downs. It doesn't mean that there are not going to be triggers, but you can look at it through that lens of why they might be doing it the way they're doing it. And so much growth comes from that. The communication will be so much more vulnerable and so much more open-hearted. And they'll know that you understand them at a deeper level than you ever have before.
Mm-hmm.
So I encourage you guys to really try that.
That's such a powerful exercise. And it's because as that perspective shift, as we gain that perspective shift, then we can start to engage in change. And true change is it's going to be met with some challenge, right? And so if we're trying to change something, there is this rebirth of the old, this genetic expression. And as epigeneers, and all of you are, by the way, I'm blessing you all with that title. Everybody's an epigeneer. In other words, you're engineering your own genetic codes right now. the internal feelings of what you're experiencing, it is the external environment for the cell structures being built right now to the tune of 800,000 per second. So whatever you're feeling right now, 800,000 cells per second are genetically being coded with that content. So it's important that we understand that maintaining a certain emotional maturity as we move forward through this change is very important, because the genetic rebellion, I don't know if you ever heard of that. Genetic rebellion is a condition. We're genetically built right now in this moment with all the history up until this moment, right? Everything. So the next moment's not built yet. It's coming. Oh, there it is, right? So, but up until that moment, we were genetically built and conditioned. And so when we change, anything we change, it's going to come with some level of discomfort. It's called genetic rebellion, because the body wants to survive, and any change that the mind is conjuring up can be viewed as a threat from the survival of the body. It's kind of status quo. Have you guys ever heard of somebody say, well, that's just how I am? You know, that's just how I am. That's just how I am. Anybody ever say that? You guys don't say that because you're constantly changing, I know. But you may have heard somebody say, well, no, that's just how I am. I can't change. That's just how I am. Well, that's how you am right now. But the very next second, there's 800,000 cells that can be anew who I am. And so this genetic rebellion is going to come up. Knowing it is intelligent. That's an intelligent way of changing. Knowing it's going to come up and having a fire escape plan or a plan to move beyond it, and understanding that there's some dark nights when you surrender some aspect of yourself, some personality trait that you don't like. Because remember you're looking for a relationship, and that relationship just triggered some aspect of yourself, right? And you're pointing the finger at who triggered it instead of pointing the finger back at who's experiencing it, who knows it, who's built it genetically, and who wants to get rid of it. Because the truth is, whatever is being triggered in you by your partner is probably something you don't like anyway, isn't it? How many of you guys agree? It's something you don't like anyway, and you would probably want to get rid of it because it feels like crap. It's not who I want to be. So honoring these triggers, honoring a human being out there that loves you enough to trigger you or cares for you enough to spend moments with you in conversation that happen to trigger you, believe me, they don't know it. They have no idea they're triggering. They're just being themselves. And you're the one experiencing the trigger. If you don't say something, they'll never know. They would never know. And you would go home angry, upset, and never call them again, right? But if you embraced it and said to that person that triggered you, oh my God, I really don't like that, but I love you. I just don't like the way I'm feeling right now. And you triggered me, but I still love you, but you triggered me. And let's work through this. Are you willing to work through this? And if a person has enough emotional maturity to say, I'm all in, let's work on this, that's a keeper, right? That's a keeper, because that is a two-way give and take. And this is important that we do this dance, because I promise you, you're going to trigger them. and do you want them to run? Or do you want them to say, I don't like what you just said, but I love you, and let's work on that? That's how relationships are built, folks. If we're willing to do that, it requires one thing. It requires vulnerability. It requires vulnerability, because for you to say something to a person that just triggered you to the tune of, I love you, but I don't like what you just did, right? That takes a bit of courage, takes a bit of vulnerability. So this is the important things, because those come up. And there's always, by the way, the moment you start to enter into change, there is a mythological concept. And I believe that mythology has a lot of truth to it, right? Because it's built on something. And there's a there is a mythological, what's called a guardian of the threshold. You ever heard of that? The guardian of the threshold. So in other words, we start to change something, and there's this energy out there that starts presenting experiences to say, are you sure? Bring somebody or an experience to you to say, are you sure? Temptation, right? You ever heard of that? So it's the guardian of the threshold of your change. The moment you decide to make a change, there's this threshold. You cross over it, then certainly experiences start to come over to push you back, to say, are you sure? Maybe you want to go back to how you were. Maybe it was easier on that other side of this threshold, right? And this is going to happen. And those are those triggers that this partner that you got this partner, you've had a couple of great, amazing weeks. You're starting to change and feel like, oh my God, somebody really loves me. Oh my God, I really am excited about having a partner. And then all of a sudden the triggers. That's the temptation to run, to move back beyond that belief that somebody loves you. Because they do. They're just bringing up your junk that you need to work on. And when they're willing to work on it with you, oh my God, I'm sorry. I'm not one of those people that totally believes that I must isolate myself to work on my own junk. No, I don't believe that, because partnership is one of the best ways to work on stuff in a very proactive way, because I'm not going to stimulate my own junk. I mean, I might rake a couple leaves off the top of the surface of the pool, but I'm not going to go to the bottom where all the bacteria and the bottom feeders are. I don't want any of that. So I need somebody like you, someone who cares about me, somebody I care about, to trigger me. And then I can start bringing that stuff up, right? And I have a partner that the one who triggered me, I can explain it to them, and they can say, well, I had no idea. I didn't mean to. But here's what I was thinking during that moment you were being triggered. And you'll find out that they were thinking how much they loved you and just wanted to expand on some goofiness or whatever it was. It's totally not what you were thinking. I promise you. Right? How many of you guys ever experienced that? Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. And some of it is epigenetic emotional DNA that got passed on generationally to you that you don't even know is there. So most of the people on this call have a Healy. That means most of you probably have the Healy coaching module, and we all know I'm still having a love affair with the coaching module. So, write the way you want your life to be. Write an intention that your life is joy-filled, that it's filled with like-minded people who you enjoy spending time with, and that you're in these wonderful, fulfilling relationships. And watch how things shift. Because the other part of this is, when you're talking about something like loneliness, that's a deep, deep emotion. It also vibrates down here. Happiness and joy vibrate up here. So if you want to attract happiness and joy, you got to get out of this. Because this is going to just attract more of the same. So, and I was telling Ken, I've gone through some grief recently. I lost my mom's brother. It was the last of her remaining family members. And it brought up a lot of, grief comes in layers, right? And so the whole loneliness thing was kind of coming in. And I realized that I had looked at some of the stuff that was coming up in my coaching module, and I went, oh my God, I got some work to do. Yes, I have some work to do. And so I started thinking, how might I change this? And then I would start waking up in the morning and I wouldn't want to get out of bed because I just didn't want to face any more loneliness. And, this was all compounded by the fact that I'd been at some family gatherings and saw my cousins with their wives and my sister with her husband. And I was there with my beautiful dog, Gabriella, which is wonderful. And we all know I love her. But the comparisons started to come in, and I just realized life is easier with someone in it that is walking hand in hand with you. So I went into this dark tunnel of just loneliness. And then I'm like, yeah, but you can't even, if you get up in this energy, you're going to attract more of the same. So I thought, what would my friend Ken say? Dr. Joe meditations. Okay. So I'm like, I'm not getting out of this bed until I shift this energy. So I've got a couple different ones. I've got a 15-minute one, I've got a 30-minute one, I've got a full-on hour one, and whatever it takes, if I have to run all three, I'm going to do that, because when I do, I am consciously creating my day. I am saying, I want companionship. I want deep connections. I want like-minded people in my life. And I'm feeling the way I'm going to feel when that is my reality. So now when I get out of bed, I'm not depressed. I'm not feeling woe is me. I'm feeling positive because I can't wait to see what the day is going to bring me. So had been doing this for, I don't know, let's just say a week. And Friday night, I thought, I got to run out to the store. It's Friday night, I'm home alone. I need a bottle of wine. Got to pick up a couple other things too. So I'm just going to walk, like go across the street to the grocery store. And I kid you not, I am in the toilet paper section of the grocery store, like of all the places in all the world. And all of a sudden I hear somebody say, oh my God, are you a yogi? And I turn around and there's this really good looking guy who had just seen the Om sign on the back of my t-shirt. Oh, you guys, seriously, girls to girls. I was like, shit, I have last night's makeup on. I've been home cleaning all day. I do not look like I want to look to meet somebody, but I just went with it. And the t-shirt on the front said, I am. And so that opened up a whole conversation about being a yogi and what it means. And this kind gentleman had just started getting involved with yoga recently, and it was changing his whole life. Do you realize I sat in the toilet paper section of the grocery store for 50 minutes having a conversation with this guy? It was deep, it was connected, it was heart-centered, it was like-minded, it was all the things that I had been intending that I was going to attract into my life. It was really interesting. And then he apologized for talking my ear off for so long. And I looked at him and I went, oh no, seriously, dude, I manifested you. Mm-hmm. And he just gave me a big hug. And Ken doesn't even know this part of it. In between the green room and this session, I took Gabby out for a walk. I ran into him.
I love it. I love it.
Oh, we have to become a vibrational match to what it is we're wanting.
Yep.
We really, really do. So whatever it takes, if it's running, Bach flowers and bush flowers and creative homeopathy, the coaching module, if you've got a Healy, use it, because that's going to raise your vibrational frequency. But sometimes that's not even enough. Then meditate. Then do some meditations, then really consciously choose to change the way you feel. Sometimes just put on some good music and dance. Sometimes just go for a walk out in nature. Sometimes
100%.
use a breathing exercise.
Yep, 100%. Because so we're talking about moving the body's nervous system, or moving your natural state from sympathetic to parasympathetic, right? From fight or flight into rest and digest. And the breath, folks, is probably one of the quickest and easiest hacks that we have to shift vagal tone. 80% of the information highway from the body to the brain is from body to brain. 80% of the information to your brain is coming from the body to the brain. So if we use the body in a very deliberate way, we can shift that nervous system. So there's a technique I want to share with you and invite you to use on a regular basis and test this out, because it's super easy. And many studies now are showing, you've probably have heard of the box breath, right? That's a great box breath. Means that your inhale, your hold, and your exhale are pretty much the same size or same amount of time. So your inhale, maybe 2 seconds, your hold for 2 seconds, your exhale for 2 seconds, right? So that's a pretty easy system called the box breath. But neuroscience is now showing a little bit different. in terms of the way the vagal tone is more effectively shifted through a 2-to-1 ratio in a breath. So in other words, a 3-second, let's just call it, it could be a 2-second, but a 3-second inhale, a 2-second hold, and twice as much time to exhale. So if it's a 3-second inhale, it's a 6-second exhale. So start with just 2 and 4. In other words, just a 2-second inhale, 2-second hold, and a 4-second exhale. Okay. So the idea is to elongate the exhale. And here's why. Because it starts to slow the heart rate. It starts to slow down the heart rate. And any kind of breath work, the more breaths per minute equate to a parasympathetic state or a down-regulated sympathetic fight or flight. So it starts to also build, if you guys have ever held your breath, right? There's a buildup of carbon dioxide in the body. And that buildup of that chemical starts to feed information to the brain to say, take a breath, take a breath, take a breath, take a breath, right? So the truth of the matter is that the body is not in suffering yet. It's not. And so the more we can elongate that exhale, or before we pull in another breath, the slower we can move our heart rate, and the more into that rest and digest we can stay. So let's all give this a try. How about we all give this a try? I'll do the cadence. You guys just perform the action. Okay. We're going to do a 2, 2, 4. So inhale for 2 seconds, hold for 2, and exhale. So find yourself a comfortable spot. Just relax the body. And here we go. You get eyes open or eyes closed. Ready? Inhale, hold, exhale. 2, 3, 4. Again, inhale, 1, 2, hold, 1, 2, exhale, 2, 3, 4. Now, breathe on your own. Go back to breathing on your own. So it takes a little bit of concentration, just a little bit, but you can do the inhale. I do the inhale as I will count as I'm inhaling. So I'll go 1, 2, and then I'll hold for 2, and then I'll exhale 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So you can do that in your mind. I encourage you to go to a 3-6. So a 3-6. Inhale for 3 seconds in through the nose, hold, exhale for 6 seconds out through the mouth, right? Okay. The reason, and thank you for the comment, through the nose or mouth, in through the nose is because air going through the nasal passage naturally circulates, cleans, and warms the air as it goes into our lungs. Okay, it goes through the nasal passage. It's got all kinds of filtering systems, warming mechanisms, circulating processes for spiraling, and then it winds up in the lungs at the right temperature, at the right cleanliness, all that kind of stuff. Okay, so in through the nose and out through the mouth. Out through the mouth allows you some of the regulation. You can pierce your lips, right? You can close the mouth a bit, but you can regulate the outgoing breath a little easier with the mouth. So that just gives you another tool. That's it. Okay. So that's just 5 reps of that is going to shift your nervous system from sympathetic to parasympathetic to some degree, right? Do it longer. You're going to find how your heart rate, and you can take your heart rate. I like using a watch, that has my biorhythmic information on it. And you can actually watch your heart rate drop as you're doing this exercise. Okay. So there is a very clear way. So where would we use this? How about if we're triggered, right? How about if we're triggered by our partner? In that moment, we can sit there and just, without responding, do a couple of breaths, or say, give me a minute, right? And you can go ahead and do your breath work for a moment. So this is a good way of actually down regulating that stress response. And what it gives you is another tool. It elongates our choice point. What I mean by that is that instead of going into the natural rhythmic genetic expression of an emotion, right, that's built into you because of a trigger, we have a moment of pause through this breath to choose a different emotion and say, I don't like that, but I love you. Right? Practice that. I don't like that, but I love you. And if we can do that very well, then the partnerships that we build are built on a foundation that's solid and not shaky. One of the other pieces I want to really unpack as we're running out of time here is connection risk. Connection risk. Lori told you a story about going to the store, right? And she connected with someone. That's connection risk, because, you know, it's a public place, so she probably felt safe. But she didn't feel so safe because she had last night's makeup on. She wasn't wearing exactly what she would have been wearing if she wanted to meet somebody. However, that's the most organic, right? It's the most organic. And to risk, the connection risk means that to open up, to be vulnerable, right? To have a conversation. And connection risk is really important because we're only going to gain whatever level we're willing to surrender. We're never going to get anything more than that. So if we're willing to surrender and risk, we're going to gain much. If we're not willing to, we'll gain little. So if we're looking for a deep partnership, folks, I'm sorry, I don't have a sugar-coated pill. But if we want something deep, we have to risk deep, and we have to be vulnerable deeply. And there's just, the universe doesn't work any other way. It's not my rules. This is just universal law. You know, the law of attraction. It's a very concrete principle. And we need to build that connection risk in order to increase the intimacy. And I'm going to tell you what intimacy means to me. It's not about the physical to me, right? I think we're certain points of our lives, we want a little bit more. And intimacy to me is into me, you see.
Beautiful. It's so beautiful.
What that means is vulnerability, right? I'm willing in that moment to allow another human to see my soft spots, right? To see my challenges, to really be vulnerable, and know one thing at the end of that: I won't die. I won't die. I might feel like crap. I might feel shaky. I might feel some emotional response, but I'm not going to die. And so I can have tears. I can have an open heart, and I can connect deeply, intimately with another human, and they can reject me. They can walk away from me, or they can embrace me. Either way, I won't die. So the key thing is what are we willing to risk in terms of connection? And are we really willing to build intimacy? Because the antidote to loneliness and isolation is building intimacy, right? Building it. So, gosh, we're at the end of our hour already.
And we have so much we haven't even touched on yet.
Maybe we have a part 2.
I was thinking the same thing. It really was. Because here's the thing. Look at this. Lacking social connection is as dangerous as smoking up to 15 cigarettes a day. That's crazy. And data across 148 studies with an average of 7.5 years of follow-up suggests that social connection increases your odds of survival by 50%. 50%.
Wow.
But here's the thing, guys. For this to happen, you're going to need to make some changes. You're really going to need to make some changes. And there's all kinds of things we've been talking about here this evening that you can do. And I guess we're going to share more with you in September about all the things that you can do. Not the least of which is considering how much time you're spending on social media.
So we talked about one of the tools that we wanted to offer, which is the breath, right? Another tool I want to offer real quickly is to reinvest in social capital. Reinvest in social capital, folks. And I'm not talking about online. I'm talking about find a way to get belly to belly with someone, right? Someone. It doesn't matter if it's a neighbor, if it's a someone that's maybe on your property to do some work. I'm telling you that person, that tradesman, that worker that's there doing something for you on your property is also lonely. This is an epidemic. It's not isolated, just us. We can have great friendships and still feel lonely at times, right? There's moments in which we wish we had a person that could touch the depths of us and feel safe around doing so. So this is what I would offer you as a parting gift, is to reinvest in social capital, right? And then another is, and I like the idea of doing a part 2, Lori, where we can talk about more of these skill sets and the tools to build towards the things we've been talked about. But in the meanwhile, there is, Lori talked about Dr. Joe meditations. And there is one out there that asks, it was created at the onset of COVID to help build a heart-centered community. And it's called Go Love 20. Anybody can get it on YouTube. It's GOLOV-20. Go Love 20. Lori just put it on there. Go Love 20 was created to promote a community of love, because love is a healing agent, right? But the process was to engage the community as well, meaning that this meditation is an opportunity for you to feel love into your heart, pull it in, and then pull a person or another loved one into that space and love them also, right? Hold them in that love, give them that love energetically, right? And then free them into the world. And it was a really fun project, because what we would do, we would pick somebody out there that we would do that for, and then we would tell them, I've been infected with the Go Love 20 bug, right? And so it would spread like wildfire across the world. It was amazing. So I invite you all to try that meditation once a day. Do it for a week. What the side effect of that is a very full, energetic, loving heart, because it's going to ask you to pick another person, right? You heard Lori talk about what it's like to be you. So what it's like to pull someone in, and I invite you to pull someone in that might be challenging for you to love, right? That's another opportunity to exercise forgiveness. But just try it with someone or a pet. It could be a pet. It could be a sibling, a parent. It can be a fictitious person. It doesn't have to be real. Just pulling that into your heart and holding it there. So that's what I'm going to offer you with as a parting gift. Lori, what do you think?
I think we're going to see these wonderful people again on 9/11.
9/11. Woohoo! What an opportunity to understand a deeper and more tools about overcoming isolation, right?
Oh my goodness.
Talk
Absolutely.
about something that separated a world.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So we love you guys. We're grateful for you. This is the highlight of our month that we get together with all of you and share these deep issues and concerns. Our only goal is to actually help you have better lives.
100%.
Truly.
And use the technology. We have an amazing technology. Healy builds an energetic expression that is going to move you out of lower vibrations into higher vibrations. So charge yourselves up. Let's go. Don't forget your self-care protocols, hydration, grounding, movement, falling in love with life, and that breath, right? All right, you guys. Oh, I love you. Big love, Lori. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much, Ken. This has been yet another beautiful Monday Night Magic, and I am so honored to do these with you.
Thank you so much. This was great.
This was the best. You guys, you're the best. Besides the Healy itself, I'm now going to take all these and share with my friends. I don't know. I can't tell you what's we're talking about bringing on intention, and I hook in and how it all relates. It is unreal. And I live in Maui, and I'm so emotional, and everybody is coming together. But I wish everybody listen to what I just listened to. So thank you.
We love you. We love you, sweetheart. We love you.
You need so much love, Laura. Feel free to reach out and connect, okay?
I will. Okay.
Oh, honey.
Yeah. All right. We'll see you
Love
guys.
and hugs to you guys and to Laura and to Maui.
Hey, thank you, Izzy.
Thanks, Izzy. All right. Thanks, everybody. We love you.
Thank you so much.
See you next time. Mwah. Bye, y'all.
Love you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.